E ho mai kai ki maluna mai. O na mea huna noi au. O na mele. E ho mai. E ho mai. E ho mai kai ki maluna mai. O na mea huna noi au. O na mele. E ho mai. E ho mai. E ho mai, kai ki maluna mai. O na mea huna noi au. O na mele. E ho mai. E ho mai. E ho mai.
Nā akua, nā ao makua, nā poe kahiko, nā kupuna of this land, island, and all the lands where you are. We are asking you, ancestors of these lands, to come quickly to us and surround us with your support and allow us to be the voice of your ʻike, your wisdom. Allow your words and your inspiration and your mana to flow through us and reach whoever it is needs to hear these words and to feel the message, the messages. We also especially ask that you shield us from the prying eyes and ears of the kalohe and the kipelo, and that you hold us all in the light, and so that we can hear more clearly without distraction, even if it is one word or one message that we need to hear for our own well-being and for our own alignment and resilience and self-love. And we form this connection and this lay of aloha. Mahalo, he akua, nā akua. Pau. So I would like to introduce you to Kumu Paʻa, Julia Nālani Adams, and Wise Guide Deborah Hālani. And this evening we are offering this live talk, or conversation, should I say, not a talk, conversation. So you are welcome to add in your comments or questions into the chat here if you feel moved to do so. And we're offering this just as a way of connection. And tonight we are talking about resilience, which we all need these days, and how the Hawaiian spirituality training can perhaps help us to develop resilience, and why we need it, and what are the tools to develop so that we can not only cope and survive, but to thrive in this life. So I have a few questions here, and I guess this one is for Kumu Nālani. Kumu, can you tell us how or what specific skills we will learn on the Path to Paʻa Hawaiian Spirituality course that might equip us with the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual strength to be resilient in this life, in our lives?
Wow, that was a really big question.
Sorry.
Aloha, mai kako. My name is Kumu Paʻa Julia Nālani. I'm the 51st generation teacher and healer from the lineage of Kumu Paʻa Lawrence Kalainia Kamani Aki of Halawa Valley, Molokai. Before we go any further, I mean, that's such a big question. My no'o is just like exploding right now. Before we go any further, and this actually answers in part what I think is the question, we just did part of that. Whenever we come together, it's an important teaching of our lineage that we perform certain protocols. And sometimes those protocols are elaborate, and sometimes they're simple, the things we do in everyday life. And what Louise and Hālani, Deborah Hālani, just shared with you was a protocol where we do an oli, a kahea, asking for entry, and we do a puli, speaking to the ancestors and telling them what is, where we are, what we need help with. Because that, my friends, is how we begin to learn about spiritual strength, mental strength, emotional strength, physical strength. That is part of our teachings, and that is what all of us, every one of us, learn. We weave it through our daily life. We start our day off like that. We may pray all day as we're doing certain things, or chant if we feel inspired. And that is all about building up a solid, unshakable foundation and leading us, training us to be in a state of what we call Paʻa. Paʻa is having an unshakable foundation. And that's what all of our teachings are about. When our foundation is strong, when it is firm, when it is unshakable, then the kolohe and kepalo, they are the energies or entities that seek to destabilize us in life. They are always watching. They understand where our vulnerabilities are. They understand where our hot buttons are. And when a situation presents itself, they already know that is a vulnerable point for us. And that's when they know we are at our weakest point. And that's when they start to put their fingers into the pie and to destabilize even further where we are. And so puli is prayer, and protocol is the way we do things. They are part of our protection from that. And the kolohe and kepalo, it's not just got their eyes on us, they've got their eyes on all the other players around us in certain situations. And they will manipulate those situations to create further unrest, instability, meanness, unkindness, hurt, pain, suffering. We could get the toilet roll out and keep writing on that, all of the, the plethora of the human experience. So the very first thing we learn is what we just did. And it doesn't have to be any more elaborate than that. And I don't know whether you all experienced that, but when Hālani was doing that kahea, that oli, which is a chant, like I hear, because, I've only been up for an hour, I could feel the mana in my space. The mana is the spirit energy of our ancestors to get things done, elevating. I could feel it. I could feel the strength of it coming in. And then Louise tops that off with the pule. In our lineage, in our teachings, we don't do incantated prayers. We are taught to be inspired from within, from our connection with our ancestors, to bring forward what needs to be said or asked for. We're taught that that is a gazillion trillion times more powerful because it represents our intimate connection with the higher being, however you want to define that higher being. You might call it the universe, but whatever that source energy is for you. So that is the first thing. It's really important too in our teachings to be able to make sure that people understand why we start and finish everything. Our discussions like this, our healing practices like Lomilomi or Ho'oponopono, we bookend them with olis and pule, chant and prayer. So that is the first thing that I wanted to point out. But let me just ask another question. So we get I'm going to ask this of you, Louise and Deborah, and anyone else who wants to make a comment, really. It would be helpful because it's a discussion about life. That's what we're having here. When we talk about resilience, that word resilience, what is your understanding of that?
Well, I have to just jump in there before Hālani. I just have to admit that I actually Googled that word today because I know what it means, but actually when I thought about it, I was like, I don't really know the details. I thought resilience was to be strong and keep going, which it is. But then when I Googled it, there was actually such a beautiful description. And yeah, I just wanted to say that I didn't really know exactly what it was.
Would you like to share what you Googled from the Google gods?
Sure. Just a sec. So this is from a Very Well Mind website. So resilience is the ability to cope and recover from setbacks. People who remain calm in the face of disaster have resilience. People with psychological resilience are able to use their strength and skills to respond to life's challenges. It doesn't mean that resilient people experience less distress, grief, or anxiety than other people. Instead, they use healthy coping skills to handle such difficulties in ways that foster strength and growth, often emerging stronger than they were before. And it's also, signs of resilience include the ability to regulate emotions, a sense of confidence and control, effective coping skills, and leaning on social support when needed. I wasn't expecting that to be a quality of resilience.
So I got it, which is lovely, and I understand the Google God's given us all of this wonderful information. The position that puts me in, the first question I ask for myself, well, how do I get those skills? The Google Gods tell me, well, to be resilient, blum, 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 blum. How do I get those skills? How do I know I got those skills? If I keep falling down, as some of the examples in the Google Gods, you fall down, you get up. It's like, is your response to failure, is response to challenges. But how do I get those skills to know how to get up? Not to get up and go bashing somebody in, not to get up and just be in survival mode and be defensive and have my shields coming up when a challenge comes along. Not to know that I have the resilient skills to be, and I'm going to quote it, unshakeable in my foundations, have healthy boundaries, know my relation, know where I am in my relationship. And for me, many years ago, that was the path to Paʻa. Because it teaches you the skills. And like Kumu said, we can create a really long list of the examples and layers that the path to Paʻa, the teachings will give you. But this is one of the ones to get. How do you get an unshakable foundation? You can't keep on falling down and getting up doing the same thing. What's that? Equals insanity, right? Insanity cycle. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. But if I go into the Path to Paʻa course, and the first thing I learn is, what's my relationship to spirit? Really, what's my relationship to spirit? And in my relationship to spirit, what do I do on a daily basis to keep my relationship to spirit healthy and open and, just use a resilient word, strong? How do I know I am resilient with spirit? Then the question is, and it's always the I. In the beginning, it's always the I. What am I? What am myself? Where is myself in relationship to all of these, to these spirits? What's my mental health? What's my physical health? What's my relationship with my partner, my mum, my sister, what's my relationships with my friends? If we want to take this into a boundary thing, what's relationships with my friend when I've got some friends or relationships that smack my boundaries down and I just put up with that? Because I don't know the tools of holding my boundaries, because where's myself? Where am I? And like Kumu said, it's so many layers and levels, but I want to come back to the I. And I had a kind of a fun thing with the word resilience today. And I was like, oh, it's the extra I in silence. And I'm like, the peacefulness of knowing where you are and where you're coming from. And for me personally, the path to Paʻa sets you in to that space, allows you to know yourself in relationship with all things, allows you to have the tools, if you want to call it the tools, to call upon, to come into, ultimately, into alignment. Right? I'm okay with all things. And that is, and that takes work to get to. And it takes some confrontations of self to get to. And they're all really healthy things to do to get to a place where you don't have an internal voice going, nag, 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 nag. Was that right? Was that wrong? Or did I do well? Did I do this? Oh my goodness, I've done that. Oh my goodness, I've done this. Where do I go for that? Oh, I'm just going to isolate for the moment. Just going to shut off the world, can't cope. And, you know, and because it addresses that, it doesn't say that doing the Path to Paʻa course, that's never going to happen, because it will always happen. But where I am in that relationship to what is happening is the most important thing for me that the Path to Paʻa course provides. I know what to call upon. I know how to get back to being in alignment when I'm pushed off because I've just pulled my hair out with having to do something for the family and nobody has acknowledged it, or they've just missed a date, or, you know, how do I pull myself back? So if that helps chunking it down a little bit.
Mahalo, Hālani. So really, Hālani is just given the teaching. So I'm going to go now, you know, go to yoga, go for a nice walk along the beach, do some meditation, think about my day. I should also say to people who don't know Deborah Rose Hālani, she trained with our lineage as well at the same time as me. So we have a lot of the same teachings. And then she was led to explore her own lineage, her own place of birth, her own cultural origins. And she's Welsh, as you can hear. And today she is a Druid. And in becoming a Druid, you know, what I want to say, because it's your story to tell, it's not mine. But in becoming a Druid, what I have observed is how Paʻa Deborah is in that practice of Druidry. And so my point of telling you that is when we share our teachings with people who are non-Hawaiians, we're not saying to you, we're going to indoctrinate you into this cult-like environment. There's no free will in that, because that's one of our teachings, right? But what we can do is share the teachings with you, to share with you how those teachings became the teachings, how they were lived over and over and over again. And you have to ask yourself something about that, right? These teachings have been in place for 51 generations. And they will continue. Each person who comes to us for training, they will continue, and that is our hope. So we have to ask ourselves, how is it that they've been preserved and practiced for 51 generations? And the answer is simple. Because they work. The ancestors would not have bothered to keep in place something that did not work, that did not have relevance for each generation that came behind them. So it doesn't matter that we are in this time period. The teachings are as relevant today as they were back then. Because what the ancestors understood very well, and you'll hear me say it every time we meet, just about, they understood people very well. They understood human behavior. They also understood the vastness of life very well, and those layers and levels of life that went in all directions, vertically, horizontally, diagonally. They understood the relevance of every single thing that they could experience. The tree, they understood that tree, its right to be where it was. That tree's relationship to the piece of earth, the aina that it was growing out of. That tree's relationship to that aina, and then to the insects, and to the flying creatures, and to the winds, and to the rains, and to the sun. They understood each thing's relationship to the next things, and the essentialness. Is that a word? Essentials? I don't know, but how that's essential. We should put that one in a dictionary. Essential to life functioning in a state of lokahi, harmony, unity, oneness. Peacefulness was a word that Deborah used. They understood that for humankind, kanaka, people, to thrive, they also needed to understand their place within all of that, their relationship to each of that. What is happening today is people are moving away from that understanding. And in that movement away from, they are getting lost. They no longer have those kind of connections. One of the reasons is because we don't live in those kind of communities. Most of us don't. We don't live in those kind of connected communities, if you want to put it that way. So what we come to learn is we don't have the resilience of community around us. We don't have community in that way. Ohana is our word for it, family, which means the broader family. And so at the community level, there is suffering right now. But the community suffers because we as individuals are suffering. We have a name for that. We call it separation. So we have a teaching for it. We have a name for it. You also have an anecdote for it. We have the teaching of no separation. How do we bring ourselves back together? I can tell you as a practitioner, and I just had this 2 or 3 days ago with a young wahine, a young woman, who said to me, what is the point? What is the point of life? What is the point of living? What is the point of anything? There's nothing more heartbreaking to any practitioner. Everyone who is a practitioner will know this when you hear someone say that. And I have people coming in my door, one after the other, telling me that. In all different ways, by the way. But that's what they're expressing. And Deborah talked about resilience in her family, or families, our families of origins, and I'm talking about community. And one of those communities is our work community. Bullying is rife. Bullying is rife in workplaces. Some people don't even know what bullying looks like. They just know the experience of it. The workplaces are full of people with narcissistic personality disorder. At best, borderline personality disorder at worst. And they're enabled in those environments because we don't know what it looks like. Those same things happen in spiritual communities, by the way. And my husband and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Because when people are vulnerable, they're looking for someone to help them. And so then they are easy prey. And this is what we're taught too. People will, those kind of people will hide in plain sight. Spiritual teachers, one of the things that you learn through the Path to Paʻa training, because it's the same training that I have done myself and I continue to do with my teacher. It's all about the skill of discernment. Being able to discern so that you can hold those boundaries with people. So you see them for what they are. When I was a corporate leader in the field of organizational development and learning and development, that was the one skill that I used to focus on. And then when I was coaching C-level executives and frontline people at the same time, the skill of discernment is the money skill, because then you know. How do you get to that point of knowing? You've got to do what Deborah said. You've got to go back to the beginning and get to know yourself. Because when you do not know yourself in your entirety, that's when you're on that slippery slope and you're easily destabilized. Your cage is easily rattled. And one of the things, that we talk about when we talk about becoming more resilient in life is not to just bounce back, not to be strong and carry on. It's not about bouncing back. It's about how you bounce back. Because if someone's got you on the ropes and you bounce back off and you continue to do the same things over and over again, you're still in the same position. You haven't moved. You're still doing, like Deborah said, Groundhog Day. That's the cycle of madness. But when you are in a place of pain and suffering, it's really hard to swim to the side and first find the side, and sometimes even start swimming because you're paralyzed. I've been there. I get that. All of us sitting here today get that. So where does it start? In our teachings, it starts at the spirit level. I always say, I'm always pointing up. I don't know why I always do that, but anyway, it's a good sort of visual, I guess. We must come into spiritual alignment first. If we are in spiritual alignment, then we will be in mental alignment, we will be in emotional alignment, we will be in physical alignment. But the work starts at the spiritual level, whether it's in our teachings or another kind of tradition that is appealing to you. That's where it starts. And you can't get there until you start to look at all the things that are preventing you from getting there. Because when you feel separated and isolated and alone, yeah, that's what you know. You know, I am out of alignment and I'm not there. So now that's the first thing you know. The second thing you know is I get to decide if I want to do something about that. People stay in situations because of all sorts of things. But if we boil it down, they stay in painful situations because of some level of fear. So we have to understand the fear of what's holding us in place. When we can get there, then the egg cracks open. The lights come on. Because otherwise, it's like being in a darkened room and trying to find your way around the wall for the light switch. But you get to decide whether you want to stay in the dark room or you want to flick the switch. Sometimes in the workplace, people will change jobs because, it's become untenable. But what happens is they're still often taking the scarring with them, which erodes their confidence, which erodes their resilience. The same if you get out of a poor relationship with a life partner. We have to address the scarring because the scarring of our experience keeps us out of alignment. We must re-establish our connection and our pilina, our relationship with ourselves. And where does that start? In our teachings, it starts at the level of spirit, of the akua, the gods, the aumakua, your personal guardians, your ancestors, the po'ekahiko, the ancestor level. They're all levels of the realm of spirit. That's your helplines. That's your phone-a-friends. How do we phone them? How do we reach out? We learn how to puli. But even before that, we learn where they are. We learn about that. Where are they anyway? Where are those helpers? And then we learn how to make contact with them, which is puli. We don't have the religious connotation of prayer. We have the understanding that prayer is our direct line of communication. It's the sacred container that we create because there is a way to pray. Again, bookending things. And then there's something that we have to do as a result of that prayer. And the teachings are give us some of the ways, some of the ideas, some of the methods. Because every teaching that we learn, that we unwrap down to its essence, that's where the tasty bit is, the essence, we then learn to apply that to ourselves and to a particular life situation. So when we study the Hawaiian worldview, that's what we're studying to begin with. What is all this about? Where does all this come from? Where are all these relationships you're telling me I need to know about? That's our starting place. When we unwrap the teachings of aloha, not just this, hello, goodbye, the real meaning of it, what our ancestors meant by that. And what does that mean in the living of it? And if we did live it, what would it even look like? That's what we learn. And if we applied that, what it looks like, to this life situation over here, how would that be different? How would that help to heal this? And how would my living of this strengthen that? It's reciprocal. Then we learn about another teaching. We might learn about the teaching of pono, which is about living in right alignment. but we learn the essence of it. That's just the high level. We might learn about truth. Now this is a big one. Truth. Because we have a teaching, it's not your truth, it's not my truth, but it is the truth. Because the truth of your experience is true for you in the moment. But that truth, that experience is also influenced by the baggage, the scarring that is brought to it. So you're seeing it through those glasses. Therefore, it's always going to be compromised. What we learn to do with the teachings is to take these glasses off, put on a new set that expands our view of that. Because we get to look at the problem differently. Einstein said it. No problem was ever solved at the level that it was created. So we've got to lift up, get the meta view, see all the pieces on the chessboard, you know, see where all the moves on the Monopoly board, where are we going to go next? So it's not a simple random throw of the dice. We know, that's what we're taught to know, not to say I think. If our teacher hears us say I think, boom, shut down in flames. You've got to know. And you've got to know how you know, which is your intuition at play. Listening to your intuition, which you can't do accurately when you're stuck in your stuff, when you're tired and worn down and fatigued. Because repeating the same unhelpful patterns over and over again is exhausting. It's exhausting. The ancestors understood that. That's why they put these things in place. So there's a whole bunch of teachings. They're just the beginning ones. You know, we learn about things like ho'oponopono, for example, which is a way of being in life. A way of being in alignment in life. That's actually one of the foundation teachings. And that's actually one of the deeper essence teachings of ho'oponopono. It's how we are in life. It is so important to your happiness in life that not just you, me, Deborah, everybody, you know, that we can get to that point of saying, oh man, this is enough. Like, I am so tired of being on this roundabout. I want to get off. And so the teachings that we can help you with, help you to look at your life. Everything that we learn, we apply to ourselves first. So that we get to a level called living Paʻa, a state of unshakableness, a state where your foundation is firm. When we do this training with you, we get to the point in that living Paʻa of unmasking the authentic self, if you want to put it that way, unmasking. I've been this way in my family, I've been this way with my sister, I've been this way with this friend, and this way with this friend, and this way at work, and this way as a student. All that comes off. So you can see the truth of yourself. And that is the important piece here, to get to that point. Because again, when you get to that point, you get to make another decision. Do I want to take the next step? And that next step is, okay, let me look at it. This is the woman or the kami, the man, the person, them that I aspire to be. How far away from it am I? And now what can I do to get there? And we will show you the way of how we do that. We actually apply each of the teachings to a specific situation. Because when you learn how to do it once, then you learn how to do it. You know? Then you know. Like Deborah said, you know who you are, you know where you are, and you know what you're aspiring to be. That's how you get into that spiritual alignment. And when that is in alignment, everything else has to line up. And I see evidence of that every day with my own clients, right? All over the socials. All the wonderful businesses they're setting up and the things they're doing and the directions that they're going, and they're coming from that place because they've sat in the Lomilomi room with me or the Ho'oponopono space with me, you know, and they're the things that we've worked on. And very slowly they've moved toward it. And nothing is a grander sight than to see people doing that. That's the great thing about social media, right? You can see all that. It's so enriching as a practitioner to see that, as a teacher of a lineage teacher, a lineage Kumu, to see that, because then it tells me as a human community, we're moving in the right direction. Because that actually isn't hard, really, for us all to move in that same direction. Life is simple. Uncle Filippo tells us that all the time. Uncle Filippo Solitorio. Life is simple. People make it complex. The teachings help you to make it less complex so you can see what the problem is, where it came from, and what you can do about it. You know, I'm sick of all these coffee cup things that say, what does it say? Keep calm and carry on, or keep strong or carry, whatever it is. You know, you can't get there until you do this part, the front part. You've got to get in the engine room. And the teachings are a gentle way to do that, actually, because they bring you to the point of where you can then decide what's next for you. Because you will find your true north. There will not be that level of confusion, that level of paralysis, of not knowing, because it clears the way to, okay, well, now I know. When I know, I'm in a state of empowerment. When I'm in a state of personal empowerment, then I make good decisions. And if I get to a decision point and go, well, that didn't quite work out, you know, how I planned, I'm not destabilized. I'm resilient enough to go, okay, so that didn't work out. Hey, ancestors, what next? And then I simply make another decision and move to there. That's how we build resilience. You know, we don't get stuck down in the rabbit hole. We know how to find our way out. And when life throws us curveballs, sometimes we can duck them. Sometimes they might hit us straight in the head. But when they do, we're not knocked out by it. We know what to do next. And that is the point of spiritual teachings, to equip you with the knowing. And knowing how you know, where you know, what you know, and really trusting in that. But it does take work. We call it the hana, ha, breath, na, belonging to, of many. That's what's behind you in this. I'm Paʻa. Mahalo.
May I, Kalamai, may I pop in there and just kind of add to all of that, and to say, do you know how exhilarating it is to breathe in an ohana or a community that has done this training? That everything expands when you're in with people who have done this training. The understanding is there, and that is for me, that has been a very liberating experience. Very liberating. It's also it's a community building experience as well. You know, I know I've got people who know the tools that I'm using, that know the frustrations that I have, that know how to get into alignment when I feel off about it. So when you go through the path to Paʻa, you are surrounded by knowledge. You're surrounded by support. Kumu, myself, it's supported. You're not in and see you, bye. Have a great year, 10 years, 3 years. See ya. You're in, and you can choose to continue to get support and guidance. It's not a goodbye. You're in the pot as much as you want to be in the pot, how much you want to take it somewhere. And I know from experience, when you start with yourself, then that automatically, as Kumu says, when you see it on the socials, it cannot not but grow in your business, in your everyday life. It has to happen because it's you. It's the giving of you in there. So that's just a little bit of an addition. Mahalo.
And just building on from that, our life doesn't have to be one of mental instability, emotional debilitation. It doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't have to be a life of adversity. So when we talk about the path to Paʻa, that's exactly what it is. It's a path. And there's touch points along the way. Literally touch points, because they're touching you. And at every time you engage one of those touch points, something changes within you. Mahalo.
Wow. Mahalo, both of you. I've learned so much, even though I've done the path to Paʻa training. Just this conversation was so wow all over again. And I just want to thank you so much for creating this. So I was thinking, should we just close off for tonight, because we offered a 30-minute, and I know that this is going to continue because we're going to be back here in this space for the next few Sundays at 8 p.m. Irish UK time. So I know the conversation will continue, and so I don't feel too sad about closing off tonight. It's been very rich. And how do you feel about that?
I'm guided by you, because we're here at your invitation. These are all subjects that we can continue to talk about and explore over and over again. But as you said, we've scheduled a series of teachings, and each one will probably build on, I don't know what the ancestors have got in mind. Makaka, always be ready, always be prepared. But each one will lead to another. But I will say this to people, especially if you are over in Ireland and the UK and, Europe. Louise is hosting a Path to Paʻa training and a Lunar Ho'oponopono training. That's the people who do, the people like us who do practitioners of Ho'oponopono. And there is only a few places left on that Path to Paʻa. But if you want to do it with us live, that's where we're going to be in April. And if you want to do it live streamed with us, that's the other option that we have, where anybody, just can do it with us. And we're going to be doing that. And this is the thing about that Path to Paʻa course, folks. We're going to be doing it more often this year, simply because it's needed. This whole thing around resilience and holding healthy boundaries with people, so that your inner self, your true essence, isn't compromised, and you know where you are and you are on that line of truth 24/7. It's needed. And so that's why we're going to do it. And our philosophy is, if this one person turns up to that class, we do the class, because we know it's that one person who's going to make a difference. Mahalo, a hui ho.
Mahalo. Kumu. Mahalo. Hālani. Ahui ho.
Oh, hey. Not
Oh.
yet. We have
Oh.
to. Oh, to get all carried away.
So I
We
couldn't
haven't
actually
got-
find it anyway, so sorry. E kalamai.
work. That's how they work. They know something's not important. Can't find the right. Anyone to do a halo or a pule to close where we are, so that place is held. Hālani,
I do a pule.
mahalo.
Puli kako. Prayer for everyone. Na akua, na aumakua, e poe ke hiko. E mahalo and aloha kupuna of all the lands that we are on here this evening in this call. Na akua, I thank you for your guidance and support in this Instagram live session on the teachings of Path to Paʻa around the Hawaiian spirituality, resilience, and holding healthy boundaries. We thank you that you have brought us together, and we mahalo Kumu for being here with our teachings from Australia, and we mahalo you for Louise for hosting this session. We ask that as we, each of us, move on through our night or our day, that are protected from the kolohe and the kepalo, and that we are in true alignment and we are happy in what we do. And I'll send you these teachings with the ancient words that have been handed down. Ea mama, ea mama, ea mama. Mahalo na akua.
Mahalo, Hālani. And I just wanted to say mahalo for sharing your experience of the Path to Paʻa training as well. I think it's more powerful to hear from someone who's actually gone through it multiple times and so works within it. Mahalo for that.
Mahalo.
Okay, everybody. Mahalo. We aloha you, and we look forward to being with you again next time. Ahui ho.